Welcome back to the Church Resource, where we talk about all the best resources for churches, leaders, and lay people. I'm Lucas Pinckard, and I'm here with the Doctor.
What's up, man?
In your Morehouse shirt
I'm
today.
representing today.
Come
Hopefully
on,
I won't
man.
say nothing stupid.
Well,
it might be too late.
No guarantees.
That's right.
No guarantees.
That's it.
Thank you guys for coming back and watching and listening, however it is that you consume this podcast. Today, we are talking about a book, Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to say about this. Disclaimers. I have a very close relationship with some of the guys that work with Jocko and Leif.
Okay.
Jocko and Leif have a leadership consulting company called Echelon Front, and their chief training officer, J.P. Donnell, is one of my very good friends. So I want to do that so that's not something that people discover in the comments.
yeah.
They're like, oh, Lucas knows him and is a shill for this book. No. And briefly, I'll describe our relationship. I met JP through the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu ministry, Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu's ministry that now I'm part of.
Okay.
A friend of mine named Isaac Tawaefa, who's the president there, served at our church for a while. He's been a good friend of mine for years. They wanted to do a podcast. They came to the church. We recorded their podcast. It was the very first time I met JP. I've heard about Jocko for years from people who were, listening to podcasts or that do leadership stuff. Actually, I've heard about the book, but resisted it because I was like, man, I need no Navy SEAL stuff in my life, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to listen to this podcast. I don't want anybody yelling at me, do more push-ups. Like,
I
I
know that's
freaking
right.
care about doing any more push-ups.
Right.
Right, fine. And also just the persona as it was kind of relayed to me of Navy SEALs in the few books that I've read, about not just, I don't want to mischaracterize them, but about special operators in general.
Sure.
Has always been the like, so there I was, up to my armpits in bullet shells and hand grenade pins. And it's like, I read a few of those books, like I don't want to mess with it. And what jumped out to me was how different JP was in the interactions that we had. And as I got to know him and kind of the principles and stuff that Echelon Front stood for, after about 6 months of knowing him, that's when I finally picked up the book and I was like, all right, this guy seems legit. I want to check out, what they're talking about in the book and go through it, which is awesome. And got to see that like those things came real and to the forefront. So all of that said, there's our opening disclaimer so that you're not like in discovery mode and you're like, actually, Luke's is actually on JP's podcast. I'm on JP's podcast. I produce it also.
Yes, you do.
But that does not, that hasn't colored the way that I look at this book. Instead, it's what has made me comfortable doing those things is like getting to see this actually lived out, that they're legit, he's legit. And get to hear some of those firsthand stories. So maybe we'll share some of that. Maybe we won't. But now that we got past all the quote the discovery phase, is that the proper way to put it in legal terms? Former counsel Respass,
the preamble, the prolegomena, all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm entering evidence in so the prosecution can look at it, before we present it. Yeah. So there's that. So I gave you this book probably about a year ago to check out. So hit me with first off. Hit me with some overall thoughts, and then we'll talk about who the book is for, what things we enjoyed about the book, didn't like about the book, layout, that kind of thing.
So, let me just say from the beginning, I had some reservations too.
Yeah.
I don't read a lot of military biographies and novels or other writings that center around military figures.
You didn't have like the hit 35, 40 years old where you were like, what I'm going to do is find out everything I can about World War II.
Not at all.
Okay, so we don't normally talk about ethnic stuff here on the podcast, but I do think that when white guys get to middle age, that's like
that's their thing.
That's what we all do.
Hey, it's a rite of passage.
Every guy that I've talked to that I'm like, oh yeah, I started getting into World War II. They're like, yeah, I remember when I was like 30, 35, 40. Like that's what I really started doing. And all of my friends that are outside of like this, group of white middle-aged guys, they're like, yeah, I mean, like, I know about World War II, but it's like, for some reason, we're like, what we're going to do? I'm going to read everything I can about World War II. I read like 70 World War II books last year. And we've already
saw a
talked on the
couple
podcast
movies.
where I had to like take the certain books with that certain symbol and like put them in another room. My
Yeah.
wife's like, "No, we can't be having a World War II shelf with that symbol
there.
in the living room,
Oh, yeah,
where the
yeah.
babies can just get their pictures taken." It's like, okay, all right, cool, good to know. That's just a me thing on this podcast, not you. Well, there you go.
I'm gonna let you get
Fantastic.
that, man. But I saw a couple movies.
Yeah, you Saving Private Ryan and Fury, and you're like, nah, that's it. I
That's it,
don't
I'm
need to
good.
know anything more. You're like, I watched Red Tails, and so I'm good. All right, that works.
I'm straight.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
it. That's it.
This side of the table, moving a little deeper than that.
Yeah, so you do with that what you must.
Yeah, there you
know,
go.
Do it,
Fantastic.
whatever it is. You can
Outed
do with that,
myself
use it.
right here in the middle of the podcast.
No,
We're
I
10
love
minutes
it.
in.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. No.
Happy to be of help.
But respect, you're crazy. But I respect all of our military men and women, and certainly the SEALs are right at the top of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but particularly me reading it from not only the leadership standpoint, but also with the filter of thinking about ministry, right? I was very intrigued by how this was going to cross over, especially with the leadership and even the business context, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I can tell you, I love the book, especially just how engaging it is, right?
Yeah.
Just how, frankly, how they wove together some of their military experience in a way that's clearly relatable. Not only relatable, but also applicable and readily transferable, to these different contexts, whether that be ministry, whether that be business. And this, so just at the outset, I just thought it was very well written. I mean, because for folks who may not read often, you look at it and it could be a bit intimidating, right? You see the pages, it's several hundred pages, but it's so well written.
Yeah.
And it has pictures in there.
Which is so nice. That little bit of a brain break where you like something happens, you're like,
Oh, thank God.
The comedian Nate Bargatze, have you heard of his stuff? So he has this theory that more people would read if you just inserted some blank pages in, like periodically. Like when a thought was finished, instead of a page break, there was just a blank page, so people could be like, like,
Exhale.
yeah. He's like, I just open it and it's just all of these words, just a few blank pages that would let me relax and catch my breath would be so nice.
I'm telling you,
You know?
those pictures came right on time, brother.
Yeah, no doubt.
telling you.
Right, like our watches do that. Right, they're just, hey, you've had an unusually stressful day. Would you like to breathe? I'm like, no, I don't want to breathe.
That's it.
But yeah,
Time to stand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Shut up, watch.
That's right.
This is a smart watch. This is overstepping their boundaries.
Oh, I'm telling you. But,
Yeah, I found it incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've talked about with this is we're not doing book reviews. Like we're not giving you our 5-star rating on what this is.
Sure.
We're not going to rate it out of 10 or something like that. What we do want though is to say, kind of, is this book worth your time? Who's it written for? Those types of things.
Yeah.
I would recommend this and have recommended this to anyone and everyone. Whether you are a church leader, a business leader, whether you are leading a Sunday school class, or
Sure.
you're a mom and dad, husband or wife, you're trying to improve your marriage or just lead your family, there are things in this book, primarily the key principle of extreme ownership, that if you pull them out or pull those things out of this, apply them, they can fix everything. And it talks about in the foreword of the latest edition, businesses are using it, churches are using it, missionaries in the field have used it and have sent back letters and be like, hey, this has been good. I will say the coolest thing to me about this book is the audiobook. Did you listen to the audiobook at all?
No.
So the audiobook is read by Jocko and Leif.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with Jocko's podcast, you've heard his voice before. If you aren't, he sounds exactly like what you think a Navy SEALs would sound like.
Yeah.
Leif sounds like if Batman was born in South Texas. So like his vocal cords from all these years of yelling, his voice is like this, but he he says Batman would never say y'all. Leif says y'all all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, so it's really like Batman from South Texas was like, and then we yelled, "Hey y'all, come over here!" It's like, all right, cool. So the audiobook is really good and really engaging for those reasons. It's read by the authors; they're telling their own stories, and so it's
neat.
very conversational in that. And there is a little bit of production value, like whenever they say, "Oh, we were in a firefight" or something like that, you hear rat-a-tat-tat-tat in the background. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, it kind of puts you in there for a little bit. So a lot like the NIV audio Bible, if you ever listen to that on the Bible app, it's got like music and stuff that goes into the backgrounds of it, and it'll do some thematic stuff. Whereas if you listen to like the CSB, which is what I preach out of, it's just one guy going, and then the Lord said, like, all right, cool.
Next.
Yeah. So the audiobook is really good. But yeah, I would recommend it to just about anyone who is in a leadership role or anyone who aspires to be in a leadership role, because it's the principles in it are so good, and we'll get into those in a minute. So that's is that assessment it's kind of what you think as well.
No, I think that's right. Regardless of where people are leading, if you're exerting and exercising influence over anybody, whether it's your children, whether it's your peers, whether it's in the church or business, nonprofit, whatever, I felt like this book was a resource that could be capitalized on by anybody who puts their hand on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important, or interesting, like you said, in the home, because for me, the primary takeaway for me was you got to be accountable.
Yeah.
And I think that need to be accountable is not restricted to our commercial endeavors, right? But even our relational endeavors, our personal endeavors. So yeah, no, I co-sign on that altogether, brother. I think whoever puts their hands on it will benefit from it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit in the beginning about how this is not put together exactly like the military biographies or autobiographies we've read or have been exposed to before. So let's talk a little about the structure of the book. The beginning of the book, which is where a lot of people struggle, is in the introduction. Is a lot of minutia. So if you want to skip the introduction, I don't normally recommend that because I love that piece of it. If you're finding that it's a little difficult to get through, that's pretty normal because they have to put some disclaimers in there. The stories that they're telling are real stories from when they were in the Battle of Ramadi in the early 2000s. So there are some things that they have to put in, like everything in this book has been verified by the DOD and all of those kinds of things. And they talk a little bit about what that process was like in writing it. So there are a few people who get into the introduction and they're like, I'm 10 pages into this. Where's the part where I'm supposed to have any application? This is just them all kind of talking about war stories. That said, once you get into the book, the structure of the book is really good in the sense that you get a real story that one of the guys tells from their perspective. Typically, it is not of some kind of incredible, larger-than-life battle sequence that they're in the midst of. Right. It's normally a story that shows a lesson that they learned either from failure or near failure. Then you will get the principle of whatever it is they're talking about, whether it is one of they call them the laws of combat, the 4 things that kind of encompass leadership from their perspective, or the mindset for victory, I think, is the other thing they talk about. So you'll get the principle, and then they'll show you how they have used that principle in an application to business. So you see it kind of in the battlefield where it was formed, what the principle is, what it looks like, and then how to take it and apply it to a business. And then, from there, seeing the different aspects of it really helped me to understand, like, this was more, this is not a war memoir. Right. This really is a leadership book.
Indeed.
And that was one of the things I kind of had to get out of my head whenever I approached the book for the first time. It's like, I've read enough war memoirs, obviously. Right. I've read enough, read enough war memoirs to know, like, kind of the flow of all that. That's not what this is. Yes, they do reminisce about some of the things that happened in battle, but it's only to show you where they learned the lesson.
Yes.
One of the things I found most valuable in this book is that it puts really easy terminology to things that we do naturally as leaders. So the 4 laws of combat: cover and move, prioritize and execute, simple, and then decentralized command. And we'll kind of dive into what a few of those are. but the idea of that was really helpful to me, because looking at something as simplistic as like, oh, cover and move, where we have heard, proper communication within teams for teamwork, whatever else. And it's like, all right, well, that looks really great on a PowerPoint presentation.
Right.
But this is a better way to explain it. When you were kind of going through or reading through those things, the 4 laws of combat or whatever, what was your thought? Were you seeing those instant connections, or was it something that like kind of took you a little bit to get into it?
Yeah, I think you've described it well, because the way that they used memorable language,
Yeah.
right? The 4 laws and stating it in such a way that, clearly you've memorized them, but they were just
I have to at this point, right? Yeah.
right, but it was memorable versus kind of, just we kind of going about doing things as best we knew how to do, or in some cases what we may have done naturally. Putting a phrase that would be easy to replicate, right? Not only remember, but replicate and share with others.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. I think, the structure that they utilized, particularly as much as I wasn't as interested in hearing all of the stories, the way that they utilized their experience was so appropriate for opening our minds, preparing our minds rather, for the principle that they were going to share. It was just such an easy jump, right? And it, so I it was great for me. I didn't have any trouble kind of tracking, but it forced me to think about, if I can just be transparent.
Yeah.
It forced me to think about times where I've misstepped in my leadership. Right, and I'm looking at their real life scenario, seeing where this thing is going, and I'm like, man, it was right there at that point that I, went off the rails,
100%.
right? Went the wrong direction, and so I thought it was great, man.
I do think that's interesting. So the extreme ownership is not just the name of the book, but it's the overarching principle for everything that they talk about. Is that no matter what happens, it's the leader's responsibility.
Right.
And figuring that out, not in a way that's disingenuous, but in a way that is real and authentic. And my favorite example of this is do you remember the late coach Mike Leach?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So Mike Leach in his press conferences was famous for just going completely wheels off, which is why they loved him so much at Texas Tech, because he was like legit could have been a pirate.
Right.
And he was talking about a loss that Texas Tech had faced, and he was like, listen, it's not the kids' fault, it's our fault. Because we thought they were smart enough to listen to us. We thought that they would listen to us instead of, and I'm quoting here, he says, we were dumb enough to think they would listen to us, the coaches who coach football, instead of their fat little girlfriends. But they listened to their fat little girlfriends, and this is what we have. So it's not on them, it's on us, because we didn't realize how stupid they were whenever they were making judgment calls. That's not real authentic,
right? Exactly.
Taking responsibility, right? No,
yeah.
But it is a great example of like what we do a lot of times.
Indeed.
Is like, no, yeah, this is my fault because I thought you were smart enough to know the difference.
Right.
Where the principle of extreme ownership is a little different in saying, hey, listen, this is my fault because I didn't communicate this well enough to you.
Right.
What things do I need to do in the future in order to communicate this better so that these things don't happen? And the stories that they use really do show how they legitimately learned that in combat, and how in the very first instance they talk about in the book, spoiler alert, it's a friendly fire, right? They refer to it as a blue on blue, but it's a friendly fire incident where, not to give everything away, but there is loss of life.
Sure.
And they've got to figure out what went wrong, if they're going to keep their jobs, what's going to go on. And the authors of the book have to go in and determine, are they going to make excuses, or are they going to, for lack of a better way to put it, like face the music and say, no, these are the things that we did wrong that we could have done differently. Mm-hmm. So it's not these guys who are trying to make heroes out of themselves in the situation in any way, shape, form, or fashion. They're talking about real scenarios that they've been through where they're walking into something with some uncertainty.
Right.
And you get to you're not so focused on the details of like where the troop movements and those kinds of things are. More you're in their shoes and you're like, I don't know what I would do in this situation.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
like, yeah, I can see why this isn't something that you would want to, fess up to and what's going on.
Right.
And how just that approach of realizing, hey, the leader's responsible for everything is really helpful. One of the big critiques that happens within Christian circles is when we look at something like this, which is a secular leadership book, that if we were to take it and apply it, then one of the critiques that's often levied is that you are trying to sanctify something worldly. If someone were to come to you and say, hey, listen, I'm interested in this book, but I'm trying to figure out, are we just trying to sanctify worldly principles by taking them and applying them to church life, or is there something more in here? What would your answer to them be?
Yeah.
Because I think if we're going to take it and apply it in churches, this is a real legitimate question we're going to have to answer.
Sure. At least with this book, I think that's easy because accountability, you can find support for that in Scripture. Teamwork, you can find support for that. Communication, being clear. But the way that the first thing I know that I would say out of my mouth is it true?
Yeah.
Right. Because if it is true, we serve the God of truth.
Yep.
Right. And so, so if it's true, it's okay, for us to consider, right, pray about it. We can find ways to corroborate it, like I said, from the text.
Yeah.
For me, this is not the kind of book where you have to stretch, to try to find a biblical principle even.
Yeah.
To apply it. It's almost written, if we think about it, he's like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Well, if it's why is it obvious?
Yeah, why is it not doing it? Yeah.
Well, it's obvious because at least from the church standpoint, we're filtering it through things that we probably read from Scripture, and it's just incredibly familiar. It's just an application in the context that we really didn't think about or helping to hone that. But I do feel like there's always that danger that we're trying to sanctify something that's purely secular. I don't think that's the case here. And like I said, if it's true, then we serve the God of truth, and we don't have to worry about that. But all that being said, and as much as I would praise the book, we still need to take it to the Lord, right?
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We still need to pray. We still need to check what I like to say, check the text, which is go back to the Bible. And if you will, verify it or corroborate it.
Yeah. And there are some things in here that I do think that there's some easy, like you don't have to search very hard to find the biblical parallels, right?
Correct.
And, for whatever it's worth to those who are listening, Jocko does not talk about his faith or talk about faith at all in his podcast or any of his public things. Leif is very open about, his faith in Christ, and that is like this center point of his focus for himself, for his family, and that is that's their thing. So
Right.
there are, I think one of the reasons there are easy biblical parallels to draw is because number one, what you said, as put it in the words of Francis Schaeffer, like all truth is God's truth. Like if it's truth, it is 100%. And then the next is that a lot of these leadership principles actually came from biblical principles. If you hear Leif talk about it, that's one of the things that he talks about. So the four principles, or the four laws of combat, what they call them, cover and move, which is, like you said, it's basically teamwork, right? And the communication within teamwork is such an important thing, because I think particularly if we grew up on sports teams or we work in office environments, like we know who our team is, we know how to work together as a team, but that communication within teamwork and setting it in that mode of the firefight, we're like, hey, if you and I are in a battle situation, we've got to cover and move. I'm going to fire so you can move, and then you fire so I can move. But we've got to be talking about what's happening.
Indeed.
So that I'm not crossing in front of you, getting shot by friendly fire. Also that I'm waiting to the right point to move so that, an enemy can't attack. And one of the things I've noticed, particularly in my own ministry and leadership, is this is one of the things that I'm the worst at, because I will see, so you've got cover and move, prioritize and execute, simple, and then decentralized command. I will have my own personal priority list that I have not communicated to everybody. And once I see that a task is getting close to done, I'll just leave full on like Irish goodbye, not tell anybody where I'm going. I'll leave and go to the next thing and start doing it.
Right.
And then when people finish up that first task, well, now the guy that they're looking to for leadership, he's gone and he's doing something else. And so now they kind of start like twiddling their thumbs, or they're trying to figure out like, hey, do you know where he went? Or like what we're supposed to do next or whatever. Because I didn't give that directive. And the principle of cover and move is a lot about that. Like, hey, you guys got this down. I'm going, let's take VBS decorating as part of it.
Right.
You know what the vision is for decorating the sanctuary. I'm going to run to the fellowship hall and get stuff started there. Whenever you're done, come follow me over here. Like, that's a super simple thing to do, but for so many of us, that communication doesn't take place. And that's one of the things they talk about in this that really helped me understand, like, oh, you know what? This is why people get irritated with me, is because in my mind, I'm going through that checklist. I'm trying to figure things out. I'm not communicating to people where I'm going. Like, they know they're supposed to be doing this. They're supposed to be covering this area. My team knows what they're supposed to do. They don't know the next step because I just started doing it without really communicating it to them. So that becomes, that for me was one of the very first and most apparent things. It's like my communication, even though, and I think we've talked about this before, there's a difference between being a good communicator from the pulpit or from the stage or from, behind a podium in a teaching position, and being good at communicating with you, with your teams. Like, that was a big one. So the next one is prioritize and execute. And I'll let you kind of explain that one a little bit and expand on it. Yeah.
Listen, so, envision a crisis, right? Envision, especially if you're thinking about ministry or a rapidly changing business context, right? Things are always in flux. You plan or you make a strategy based on the information that you have, and then all of a sudden things just, what we used to call fire drills, right? Stuff just
100%
kind of come up, and you just got to make a decision, right? This idea is you trying to figure out what you should be doing when you have, 4 different things that you need to address, and they all feel like priorities, right? Equal priorities.
Yeah.
Right. It's this whole idea is to do the hard work to figure out what is the number one priority that you have. What is the number one objective? If you say, what is the mission, right? And use that to filter down to what you should be doing right now.
Yeah.
You can't do all 4, right? All of your resources need to be committed to one thing, right? So you prioritize that action, and then you pursue it relentlessly, accomplish it, then you move to the next thing. And for me, right, this is an issue because I continue to struggle with the frame of mind, for, at least with me, is that I got to do it all anyway, right?
Yep.
And so how do I, prioritize? So I was challenged, right? I was really challenged, maybe even offended. Slightly offended that he would step on my sore spot,
right?
Because we feel like everything that we're doing is important. Certainly, our military men and women feel the same way. Our business leaders whose decisions are going to affect families, right? Not families in addition to their employees. And so this was critical for me, man. I was like, God, I gotta do the hard work. I have to lead and not just hide behind, well, it's all important. Yep. Right. And then not be intentional about working, through the most important issues, at least on my list or whatever.
Yeah. And with this one, I always think about groceries, right? Because I can't tell you how many times we've gone to get groceries in, July in Texas, 104 degrees outside, and in the car, it's worse. And I'll get all the canned goods inside and start unpacking the canned goods, and I left the ice cream out in the truck.
See?
Right? And like it's simple, right?
Listen, I was literally thinking about this. I was like, okay.
We're very ice cream oriented.
Yeah, that very much. I need to talk to you about this new spot I just heard about, but we'll talk about that off the air, right? But I was thinking, I was like, wow, okay, so so it's a mother. She has to run by the grocery. I literally was thinking about this. Got to run by the grocery store. It's at night. You got a cart. It's got groceries, but you got a kid in. What's the first move? Right?
Yeah, like that's it.
Do you put the kid in the car, or do you put the grocery? Like, it sounds.
And you're traveling around with grandbabies
Yeah,
right now.
man.
I got like
you got
my
your own
first
baby.
round
Yeah,
of kids.
that's it.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
I'm like, man, let them steal the cabbage, right? Like,
Yeah.
put the kid in the car or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's something as simple as that. And you know what? I know this is kind of a tangent, but the thing that hit me as I was preparing to come over here is, our military men and women dealing with life and death in a very real.
Oh yeah.
Well, if you're in ministry, at least you're dealing with the same kinds of stuff, spiritual, right?
Yeah.
Sadly, people don't live forever,
Right.
Right, and there are things that happen, and we should be, if God's called us to impact lives and help people make these eternal decisions to lead them the way they should go, man, I should take the time as a leader,
Yeah.
and prioritize what's important. I should,
100%.
You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
should cover and move, right?
Yeah.
And some of those other things that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
like that's such a good thing, because I don't think we understand the gravity of it in that sense anymore. Like, you can tell when you go through the book of Acts that that's how the apostles understood it.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow over the course of becoming more and more comfortable throughout the years, we're like, nah, church is optional, this is optional, whatever. And it's easier to preach a gospel that makes people feel comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
or that makes them feel happy, than one that actually calls them to repentance and remembering, like, hey, listen, one of your number one priority is to do this, in spite of all this stuff, and realizing, people's eternities, people's souls, people's right nows, they're all on the line.
That's right.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing whenever you start to view things in that light. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
So we got cover, move, we got prioritize and execute. The next one is simple, and this is another one that I'm terrible at, about being simple, clear, and concise. I was giving my testimony a few weeks ago, and I was telling them at the beginning, it was like, 1, it's dangerous to give a pastor a microphone. Ooh. 2, if you tell him 20 minutes, I don't know what 20 minutes looks like anymore. I had to speak for 20 minutes in so long. We talked about the stuff that you guys do over at the Antioch Leadership, or in the Antioch Leadership Program, that, what do you call it, the Leadership Academy?
Training Institute.
Oh, the Training Institute.
Training Institute.
Wow,
yeah.
wasn't that?
Yeah, well,
Wow, so
it's just
official.
some
Good
words
job, good job, Anthony. So the in the Antioch Leadership Institute, y'all make people give a 12-minute sermon.
Oh yeah.
Right, because you got to prove that you know the text.
That's it.
As soon as you said that that's what you did, when you and I were talking about it one day, I was like, I can't do that. Which makes me wonder about whether or not I know anything in this book that I preach out of, all the last few years of my life. So, like, that idea of being simple, clear, and concise is really important. Well, one of the other reasons is when you look at things like, teamwork or cover move, when you look at how to prioritize and execute, that so much of what is in a leader's brain has to do with the 30,000-foot view of, like, hey, if this happens, then this will happen, then this will happen. And knowing what is important to communicate and what isn't will be the difference between success and failure in a lot of areas. Right? Like, you can give somebody the why of, like, hey, I need you to clean this up because we got people coming in a couple of hours.
Right.
Right? But if you start with, hey, I need you to clean this up because we got people coming in a couple of hours, and, when Edrin and his wife, Lady Edrin, get in here and they see this, man, they have a hard time if this and this and this are done. And so we want to make sure that this is done. And there was this one time where, all this happened. Now you've given too much information. You've lost the forest for the trees.
Right.
Because, right, you feel like, scratch that, I feel like whenever I do this, hey, I'm really doing a great job of explaining the why. No, the why was, we got people coming in. It needs to look nice.
Yes.
That's the why.
Yes.
We don't need any of the other stuff. But I will wade through some crap and
man,
just
listen.
like, you have every detail about everything. You will know about Edrin's 4th grade teacher by the time I'm done with it, instead of
I'm right there with you. That's why when you giving that example, I felt right at home. I was like, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Speak to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what really arrested my attention on this part was the idea that if it's not simple, like, well, let me rephrase it. The more complex it is, you start to increase their likelihood of failure.
Yeah.
And that grabbed me by the throat, man.
Yeah, man.
Because I was thinking, listen, how could they have missed this? I took the time to quote unquote unpack all of that.
Yep. It was all on the slides if you had just paid attention.
No,
Yeah.
You should have just said, we have people coming.
Yep.
Right? Just keep it simple.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tell a story of a guy who they call him BTF Tony. The BTF stands for Big Tough Frogman, and Frogman is what House SEALs refer to themselves. And he goes in, and they're telling him they've got like these 10 things, and he goes, "I can remember 3." Like, that's it. And he's just an older, like grizzled veteran. And we come in, and they're like, "We got these 10 things we want to do," and he goes, "I can remember 3. Tell me the 3." Like, what are the 3 that you want me to do? And as they're kind of going out, they're like, actually, as kind of in the beginning, as we were like, what do you mean you can only remember 3?
Yeah.
What they realized was like that's kind of what all of our guys can remember. And in our setting, right, in a ministry setting, I was like, nah, man, our people can remember 5 things, right? Maybe go on. 3 is kind of that magic number in a lot of things. That's why sermons have 3 points in a lot of people, right? Like you want to. If you're going to do alliteration, it needs to be 3 P's or 3 S's or whatever. That's what people. There's something about that our brains really retain that information. So whenever you're doing that, hey, here are the 3 things I need you to do, bro. Super easy for people to get, and they're all in, and then they don't. Again, miss the forest for the trees. The last one, decentralized command. I think the way I describe it to people is that it is, it's delegation on steroids.
That's right.
Is to delegate something to somebody, and the way that we think about it is I am sweeping, but I have to go do this, and so I ask somebody to sweep, and then that's it. Whereas decentralized command is really handing authority of an area over to someone else to actually go and lead in a way that you can supervise them so that they can move their way up.
Yeah.
The story that immediately comes to mind of this is Jethro and Moses.
I mean, I think that's a great example. Moses knew eventually his time was going to be up because the Lord had given him a hint. Oh, you said Jethro.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Jethro,
Joshua. I'm thinking Joshua.
Yeah, I think Joshua is like that come to fruition, right?
Yeah, indeed. But going back to Jethro, it's like, man, you're going to kill yourself. You can't do all this stuff.
100%.
And the example that I, as you make this connection point is we all think we're doing that. Mm-hmm. We all think, oh yeah, no, look at the structure. We have all these,
It's my leadership pipeline.
Got
it's
the
happening.
pipeline. We got all of this stuff, and basically, as somebody, I think it's probably Charmaine. Somebody told me, no, you just want me to do your grunt work so you can run up in front of this parade.
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, I really want you to do it. And then when I was looking at my interaction with whom, it might have been her, it might have been somebody else, I really wasn't I hadn't, maybe I delegated, but I hadn't given them the authority, if you will.
That's the big one.
To make the decisions, for the project. I was still kind of inserting myself way too soon and not really giving guidance. I was really doing the project through them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things it talks about in that chapter is that if you're truly delegating, you're truly giving decentralized command, that you let them plan it.
Yeah.
And then if it's like 70 to 80% of what you would have done, then you just let them go with it. Like, let them learn from their mistakes on their own. But if it's below 70, maybe it's 50 to 70%,
right.
Then you do a little bit of coaching. But when you do that little bit of coaching, you're detached from it. And so you don't have the emotional attachment to that plan, right? You haven't cast the vision for that plan. You're not seeing how it's already going to affect everything else. You're not in it in that way. And so you can really kind of look like a genius because you can poke a couple of holes in their plan and help them to make it better, and they can see that happen. In the reverse, if you are the leader who comes up with a plan that's 50% right, and then the people underneath you are doing it, then they start poking holes in the plan, then you look like a doofus. Because this dude can't plan his way out of the paper bag, right? And then on top of that, we have this desire to defend our plan.
Indeed.
And once that starts to happen, now we're defending a bad plan and we go forward with it. Well, how many times in battles has that cost a country a war, right?
That's right.
Let's look at Napoleon trying to go into Russia in the middle of winter, right? That nearly cost him the country, right?
Yeah.
So when you do scale that back and you put it into these contexts, right, like the same thing happens whenever we get hard-headed about how and when we want to do certain events, whether or not a certain type of event is something that has to be on the calendar for one way or for one reason or another. Instead of passing those things off, and then we can look at it and say, oh, all right, well, so you're going to take care of our vacation Bible school this year, or you're going to do our men's ministry this year, or whatever. Come back with me, come back to me with a plan. If they got no plan, then hey, listen, this person's going to need some micromanaging and do it. If they come back with 50% of a plan, you can show some holes in it, but it also gives you a good gauge of where they're at. If they come back 80% of what you would have done, hey, you know what? Run with it. As things come up, come talk to me about it. Let them learn from their mistakes. Or maybe what you find out is it's 80% of what you would have done because you'd have been 20% wrong if you would have, if you would have done it and given them the opportunity to do it.
That's it.
We use almost all these principles within our church, but we rename them.
Okay.
Right? Like, coming into the church building, you don't want to see like laws of combat, set up on the wall, right? Like that's not what most folks are looking. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's not what most people are looking for. But if you look at this stuff and you say, "Hey, we're going to take responsibility. We're going to use good teamwork. We're going to make sure that we have our task list or our to-do list properly prioritized. We want to make sure that we're simple, clear, and concise in our communication." And we want to give people, we want to empower people to lead. Okay, wow. Like people come in and they're like, man, that sounds great. That's an organization I want to be a part of.
Indeed.
It's all the same stuff. Right, so if you want to use the terminology, use it. If you want to change it, change it. It doesn't matter. The principles that are there are so good. They are biblically based. And one of the things I dig about this, I don't know if you dug into it at all, there's a Q&A section in the back where it takes some excerpts from several of the podcasts that Jocko does. And it's the questions that people have asked on Twitter, on Facebook. They've written in and, through email and asked those questions. And he answers a lot of the things that like, oh, you think, I say you, I pointed at you. Like I think like, hey, well, here's the one scenario in which extreme ownership wouldn't work. And then you go to the back and it's like, yeah, everything's outside of your control. Well, own your attitude. It's like, oh, okay. All right, yeah, well, that makes sense. Right. So like he answers a lot of those frequently asked questions, which is pretty cool. So I would highly recommend it. I think it is for anybody who leads or aspire to lead. We did talk about this, and I think we'd be remiss not to just mention it one more time, how this can be used in the home and how effective it is with the marriages. This is not the kind of book that you hand to your wife and be like, I need you to read this.
Not in Leif.
No. Like, I want you to read this book on taking responsibility. So I think this will be really helpful for you in our marriage.
Cover, forget.
But I did, I gave it to Kirsten. And I was like, hey, I've pulled a lot of stuff out of this book. And I think this is a really important thing, too, because whether it's within the marriage or whether it's in the context of your ministry teams or at work professionally, I think you'll get a lot out of it. But also, like when you give it to somebody, because you're going to want other people to read it.
Sure.
Is the first thing is you do not need to try to get other people to take extreme ownership. If you start doing it and setting the example, the culture will catch on.
That's right.
Number two is when you give it to them, tell them about your experience with it.
Yeah.
And not like, hey, I think you need to do this, because that is a terrible way to pass something on. But that's what I did with Kirsten. I was like, hey, listen, I've been reading this. It's, the company JP works for and yada, yada. I've gotten a lot out of this. I think I want to apply some of these principles. I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So she gets about halfway through the book. I don't know that she's gotten much past that halfway point, but we had some good things. We have implemented that number one priority, like take responsibility for yourself and your own actions, which is all throughout the Bible. That is the one thing that consistently God is like, if you take responsibility for your own actions, we can sort out all the rest of the stuff. Right. And instead we were like, that woman made me eat this.
It was her.
Yeah, that woman you gave me, right? Like trying to blame him for all this stuff. Yeah. That not only do things start to sort themselves out, but it brings a level of honesty into those relationships that's so key. So, you got any final thoughts before we close this out?
I was just going to say I appreciate you sharing that about you and Kirsten, because I do think the way that the information is presented, that you can just isolate one of these and just focus on it, and it's going to make a difference, right? It's that rich, I believe, and it's so applicable that if you just say, okay, I'm going to work on decentralized authority and command, that'll take you a long way.
Yeah.
Whether it's at home, at the church, and job, and you just working until you get a handle and maybe move to the next one, man. But I think it's great.
Yeah. So the book is Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko, Willink, and Leif. Babin. You can pick it up just about anywhere where books are sold. We both definitely endorse it. There is a workbook that comes or that you can purchase in addition to it if you want to go through some stuff with your teams. We did that for our young leaders group.
Okay.
And so we went through the whole thing. We saw it to be like the effectiveness as we were going through the book was really, really great. And it does give you a little bit of opportunity. There's a cool little assessment piece at the back where once you finish the book, you can figure out like, hey, if I'm doing an honest self-assessment, which one of these areas am I the most off in?
Okay.
And then kind of reassess. And so that's something that we've been doing. It's pretty cool. But yeah, check it out. We both endorse it. We think it can really help with your leadership. If you have ideas for a topic or resource you want us to look at, you can send us an email to churchresource@gmail.com. That's the churchresource@gmail.com. And until next time, y'all have good, get give, and we'll see you.
Holla.